Beyond the Fence Line is brought to you by the Texas Agricultural Land Trust, dedicated to conserving the Texas heritage of agricultural lands, wildlife habitats, and natural resources. Find out more at txaglandtrust.org.
Well, welcome to our episode 5, Beyond the Fence Line with Texas Agricultural Land Trust. And this episode, we have Cy Cook with us. Cy's the Chief Operating Officer and Executive Director with Texas Farm Bureau. Welcome, Cy, and appreciate you joining us today.
Great pleasure to be here, Chad. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, thanks again. And I always enjoy my conversations and with you about agriculture and your insight. And I know today is going to be wonderful, and our listeners are going to enjoy your insight as well as Texas Farm Bureau's insight. So, maybe we start off a little bit, Cy, of giving us an overview of Texas Farm Bureau and the history and its purpose.
Great. It's a pleasure to do that. Describe an organization that I've spent a career working for. Texas Farm Bureau was established in 1933, and the purpose was to address the needs of agriculture in rural Texas. So this outfit is 87 years old. Right now, we have in excess of 500,000 member families here across the state, and we're the largest general farm organization in the state and one of the largest in the country. And by general farm organization, I mean we represent all commodities. Our mission is to be the voice of agriculture, and we do that on many different levels. Farm Bureau is local, state, and national in scope. We have 207 organized county farm bureaus across the state. Y'all know that there's 254 counties, but a lot of counties don't have enough population to have a farm bureau. So we have 207 organized offices, and each of those county farm bureaus is governed by an independent board of directors comprised of ag producers. So we have about 2,000 ag producers across the state that direct our organization on the county level. Of course, on the state level, we're officed here in Waco, and that's where our administrative headquarters is. And on the national level, we're also a member of the American Farm Bureau Federation. There are 50 state farm bureaus, and they're all members of the American Farm Bureau Federation. So that allows us access to officials at the local, state, and national level. And we try to be an effective voice for agriculture on all those levels.
Yeah, thanks with that, Cy. I mean, it's pretty amazing to think of that many members, and I'm a proud member myself and have been for a long time. And it's a great organization from a state level as well as a national level. When you kind of think about it, Cy, you mentioned, you've basically spent your whole entire professional career with Texas Farm Bureau. So maybe what has changed and some of the trends that you've noticed kind of during your tenure?
Chad, I have spent my working for somebody else career at Texas Farm Bureau. I've been here 33 years, but I want to go back a little further than that. I started with this outfit when I was 27. Before that, I was a full-time farmer and rancher. After getting out of college, which by the way was paid for through agriculture, I farmed and ranched. So I've got a good focus on what it means to make a living in agriculture. As far as what has changed since I've worked for this organization, I'll tell you some of the things that I have seen. Ag production has consolidated. I do see that we have fewer full-time ag producers in the state now. There are fewer folks that make 100% of their living from full-time production. There are also far more part-time producers than there used to be. There's a lot of people that still have a vested interest in agriculture. They may have a set of cows, they may farm and ranch on the side, and they may have other jobs. So those are two of the trends that I see have happened in the last 30 some odd years. Let me tell you about some things though that have not changed. And I don't think they've changed in 50 years. And that's some of the things that producers have to deal with and some of the things that this organization deals with. The number one thing that we dealt with 50 years ago and still deal with today is profitability in agriculture. Agriculture has to be profitable. We also deal with water rights. We deal with private property rights. And ag producers also have to deal with taxes and regulation. Every year when our Texas, or every other year when our Texas legislature meets, you kind of see those issues pop up, talking about budgets and that type of thing. And it makes no difference if it's 2020 or 50 years ago, those particular issues always remain. So that's what's changed and that's what stayed the same.
Yeah, it's amazing to kind of think about those stats and kind of, how we have some of those adjustments, but agriculture is definitely, still the driving force around our communities and our, security of our state and our nation as well. And just, it may look at, adjust a little bit. And, I think one of the other stats too, that's interesting to me is, we're seeing more and more kind of new to the land type landowner that maybe didn't grow up on a rural or didn't grow up like you or I and, on a farm and ranch, that are purchasing property and moving into that ag space. And I think that's definitely interesting dynamic and a change that I've seen over the years as well. When we kind of think about this time, the last 5 or 6 months, we've had this pandemic and we've had those challenges for sure. How has Texas Farm Bureau responded to this pandemic and helping all these farmers and ranchers across the state?
Whenever you're dealing with a problem, especially in agriculture, there's no saying there's nothing new under the sun. But there's really no playbook to this, Chad. We've not really experienced a situation exactly like we're in now. I guess a perfect storm. So many things have happened. I guess the first thing I want to say about that is relates to agriculture. AFBF started this particular movement, and it's called still farming. And of course, we promote that here at Texas Farm Bureau, and that's what agriculture has done through all of this. We're still farming. Folks have to eat. Agriculture is absolutely a critical industry. So that's kind of where we are. We've not quit. We're still functioning. Our ag producers are still functioning, so we're still farming. One of the things that Texas Farm Bureau has tried to do is provide info to producers to help them make decisions through this. Information is always a great weapon, and it's necessary to survive any challenge. So we've tried to really give them the information that they need. We've worked really extensively with elected officials, and I'm going to spit out a bunch of acronyms here, Chad. I mean, we've worked with the CFAP program. We've worked with the PPP program. We've worked with MFP program. These are all programs that have been designed to help agriculture get over this hump. We all know about the trade, the tariff issues that we've had with China. That's hurt with agriculture. Thankfully, the administration has come up with some programs to help us through that. Paycheck protection program. Those are all programs, though, that you have to be aware of. You have to know where to go. You have to know how to do it. And that's the information that we've been providing to our membership, where to go and how to do certain things. So we've done our best to provide information and work closely with our elected officials.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Si, for, Texas Farm Bureau's leadership and helping. And I know it's been a lot of probably many hours and probably less sleep at times, kind of thinking through this and helping us. Also kind of just really want to maybe change the discussion a little bit and really start kind of discuss this interaction of Texas Farm Bureau with the Texas Agricultural Land Trust and your leadership. Your organization played a integral kind of role of the creation of TALT, and kind of want to hear from your perspective and Texas Farm Bureau's perspective of why and the importance that you see in our working lands and working landscape.
Well, Chad, I guess I kind of want to start out by saying this. We have a lot of landowners in our organization, a lot of folks with ag and open space land, and I'm fortunate to be one of those folks as well. And one of the things that I think is common about folks that have ever made a living off the land or farm and ranch is that I think we all realize that we don't really own that land. We just get to use it for a little while by the grace of God.
Yeah.
And one of the most important things that most ag folks want to do is they simply want to leave it better than they found it. And I think that that's pretty common for most landowners, especially those that have been involved in agriculture. Along about 2005, a lot of the landowner organizations in Texas got concerned about the loss of open space land and what that represents. For many, many years now, we've seen a major influx of people moving to Texas. That's a blessing and a curse. We've got a lot of folks moving here. This is a great place to live, a great place to work. But we began to worry about what this influx might mean to the open space and working lands of Texas. And a lot of people mean a lot of demands on your resources, a lot of demands on property, a lot of demands on food production, a lot of demand on your climate and your infrastructure. So it just made sense to kind of come up with a collective way to address how do we ensure that future generations are going to have open space and working farm and ranch lands here in the state of Texas. We're fortunate that 95% of Texas is privately owned. So we just needed an alternative. We need some other tool in a landowner's toolbox to maintain ag lands here. So I guess that's what kind of started this discussion.
Yeah. It's from a TALT perspective, and I'm very passionate, right, of keeping that freedom to operate and being able to help our private landowners be able to have those tools, like you said, to be able to pass on that legacy and heritage, and keep providing what basically the title of this podcast is, right, beyond the fence line. And it's those important pieces, I think, Si, of the agriculture. We provide the food and fiber, and but so many other things of clean water and open space and et cetera, beyond that fence line, right, back to the community. And agriculture is definitely the backbone. And I'm proud to be with TALT and be able to provide some of those other services to help your members and all the other farmers and ranchers in Texas, of being able to help them with that. When we kind of really think about that transfer, we're amidst the greatest kind of transfer of wealth and land from one generation to another in our nation's history. And how do you see this playing out for our Texas families?
Well, a lot of families now are having to make some really hard choices when they're deciding what to do with a farm or ranch. And in some cases, there are possibly no young people that want to come back and actually work that land. So they're having to deal with that. Another element is it takes more and more land and a bigger operation to make a living. Now, the margins are so razor thin in agriculture that it takes a bigger operation to actually make a living. So those are two things that are having to be dealt with when you think about passing property on to the next generation. I also notice, however, that many folks and many families they're engaging in really thoughtful consideration of how to do this. They're using tools that are provided, and TALT is certainly providing a lot of those tools. They're thinking about how can we do this. So while these are hard decisions, at least we're having a few more options available to us. Death tax comes in, to certain families. Land is worth a lot, and we have a lot of folks that are cash poor but land rich. And the current death tax exemptions seem large, but in the scope of things, with what land is worth now, sometimes they're not enough. So they've got to consider the tax consequences of what they do as well. So anyway, it's a complicated area, very complicated.
Yes, I think when we think of some of these opportunities, I think in like what you're saying, and some of it is the possible current tax laws that landowners might not be aware of, that they can utilize to help with this transfer. What are some of your thoughts there from Farm Bureau's thoughts on that?
Well, TALT of course plays a critical role in this. I mean, they're providing options for folks who want to protect a lifetime of work or a generational enterprise. I mean, we've got to really concentrate on doing this smartly. If you make a mistake, you can pretty well wipe out a lifetime of work, a lifetime of savings, and sometimes generations if you make a mistake in how you do this. And we hate to see that kind of thing happen. So, I mean, the more informed a landowner can be, the more you explore your options, the better off you'll be.
Yeah, I agree. When think of it from a TALT perspective, SI, we have some multiple components and we have those tools. Again, they're just tools. They're not right for everyone. But being able to provide them. And one of those tools is, a permanent easement, right? And being able to provide that tax incentive for that family to take that conservation value of that property and be able to utilize a tax benefit of that value. You can utilize it for the next 15 years. And so it becomes a great tool of thinking of that transition. I think we also have those options of, a purchased easement too, to help provide that. And I think that becomes a great tool thinking about that transfer and that, on that purchased easement component of that conservation value. We work with a lot of folks that utilize that as maybe an endowment to kind of help that next generation with some kind of that startup funds of overall. I think those are some great tools. I think about when we think about taxes and something you just said, Cy, that kind of rang true to me is really thinking about, there's a lot of these landowners that maybe don't have children, or the children just aren't going to come back for whatever reasons they may. But they want to still keep that ranch or that farm in ag operation. Is there anything that you can think of? I know there's some other states of like Kentucky, for example, that have looked at some tax incentives for this generational transfer to maybe new and beginning farmers. Is that something that, what are your kind of thoughts about that? Or is that something that Texas Farm Bureau is kind of thinking through?
Absolutely. We have a young farmer rancher program, and we've worked with entities like the Department of Agriculture and their Texas Agricultural Finance Authority to provide opportunities for young producers. Again, it's tougher and tougher to make a living in agriculture, and what's really tough is beginning. It takes so much capital to start an agricultural enterprise. So any tax-based incentives that you can offer young farmers are welcome. We talked about the uncertainty of agriculture and the variables that we can't predict. One thing that we can't always predict is taxes. We all know that we're going to have to deal with taxes. So if you can provide a benefit to a young farmer and rancher, and in turn it provides a tax benefit to the landowner, that's just a win-win there. So there's a lot of different things that can be done there, especially with the enhanced tax benefits that can be had through a conservation easement. So, definitely that's something that can be used to help these young farmers and solve two problems at once.
Yeah, I think those are great points. And it's something we definitely need to look at and definitely from a TALT perspective, we're here to help in anything that we can help you, Cy, on that. Texas Agricultural Land Trust is, focused on a couple of policy priorities right now, really to try to look at benefiting agricultural landowners. And, our key, just like yours, is that freedom to operate and provide, those opportunities for these landowners to stay in business. And, a key piece is that, is being financially stable, right? That to me, that's the biggest stool of, when we talk about the three-legged stool of sustainability, it's really about profitability. And I know you feel the same way. So we're really focused on this resiliency and the resilient landscapes and some water issues to kind of help empower that producer from that working aspect. Any insight that you may want to share on kind of this resiliency and water policy from a Texas Farm Bureau perspective?
Well, sure, absolutely. We all accept that our climate is changing. A lot of debate over the cause of that, but at any rate, we got 29 million people here in Texas, and we're still growing. And water is and will continue to be a concern both for agriculture and urban use. We just have a finite amount of water that we have to deal with. Open space land provides those resources. I don't know where I've heard this, Chad, but there was a statement made and it seemed there was a campaign taken on no land, no water. And I think that's probably true. People need to understand that when you pave over land, when you put concrete or pavement or develop it, it kind of cuts off some of the water supply. It makes it hard to manage. So that's another place where this conservation easement and conservation of these open space lands can help. We've got to conserve our natural resources. We've got to make a habitat for wildlife. We've got to produce agriculture, and open space land is basically the only way that you can do that. That's kind of my take on that.
Yeah, I think, Si, you made a key component or key point in that, we think about our increasing population where, that population's getting further and further removed from agriculture, right? And I think it's telling our story from a producer perspective. And one thing I'd like to kind of share with you is kind of thinking about from the water side and kind of TALT story in essence. So, we have over 30 easements, over 234,000 acres, right? And that's a big number, and it's a great number. But really, when we look at that 234,000 acres, we're conserving over 170,000 acre feet of water per year. And, that's another big, impressive number. But to break that down a little bit further, Si, that acre feet of water that we're conserving annually is enough water to supply the city of San Antonio for over 200 years, right? I mean, that's a big impact and really a statement to really show what our agricultural community, our farmers and ranchers, what they're providing to all of Texans, and that's just so important. And I appreciate you sharing your insight on that. I think another topic that's from a policy perspective, I'd like to hear your thoughts, and it's something that's it's dear to me as well. Of just our family have been kind of on the back end and maybe not the right end on eminent domain. I know it's always a hot topic for our landowners. And so what resources does Texas Farm Bureau offer to the landowners, and what are some of your policy priorities related to eminent domain?
Well, thanks for that question, Chad. Eminent domain and eminent domain reform remains one of our high priorities. We mentioned that we've got 29 million people in Texas and growing, and we know that a growing state, we're going to have infrastructure needs. You're going to have highways and power lines and pipelines, and private landowners are not against progress at all, but you have to recognize the private property rights, though, in this state. One of the things that we do and we have done to provide resources for landowners when they face eminent domain, we have a website, and we have a landowner's guide to eminent domain. You can find that on our website, texasfarmbureau.org, and it just gives some guidelines to go by, some information. We said information is power, and that's what we're trying to do, is to provide some information for landowners. We basically want landowners to have three things when they go to negotiate any type of a eminent domain case, and bona fide offer, minimum easement terms, and public meetings. Those are three very critical issues to make sure that landowners get treated fairly. Again, we're not trying to stop progress. We just pretty much insist that landowners be treated fairly when the taking is necessary. Nobody argues the need for roads or pipelines or high lines. We just want to make sure that landowners who may have to face that one time in their lives get a fair shake from an entity that basically does that every day. So that's kind of our focus on eminent domain and some of the things that we're working on and resources that we're providing.
Yeah, those are great points and great resources, Cy. So what else is on the horizon for Texas Farm Bureau, and what are you currently focused on?
Again, some of the things stay the same. They never change. I'm going to use the sustainability word, Chad. Sometimes that word is used completely out of context, but we're after sustainability for agriculture. And the first element of sustainability is profitability. Agriculture or any other business has to be profitable before it can be sustainable. So that's probably one of the things that's really high up on our list. Another thing that we have worked on and continue to work on is fair and free trade. Our folks, we've got some of the best agriculture producers in the world. And if we're allowed a chance at a free and fair market, we can compete with anybody in the world. What we can't compete against is foreign governments subsidizing their agriculture. So we continue to strive for fair and free markets. Ag producers want to make their living from the market. We don't want to make our living from a government payment or a subsidy. We just want to make it from the marketplace. So we're trying to get things such as we can compete and we have a fair chance to do that. Another thing that we try to do is we're just trying to accurately represent agriculture to a population that is about 3 generations removed from the farm, Chad. And about 3 generations removed, that means that not only our current population, but their parents, and maybe sometimes even their parents. You have to go back to the grandparents to find anybody that has spent any time on a farm or ranch. And those people lose their understanding about what it takes to provide food and fiber for this country. And we need to connect with those folks. We need to introduce the concept that, look, even though you're not involved in farm or ranching, even though you don't live out in the country on a rural landscape, you depend on those entities for your food and fiber every day. So we're trying to connect with them through education, through advocacy, that we're partners in this. We're a partner with you because you eat every day, you wear clothes every day, and agriculture is the entity that provides that. So those are some of the things that are on the top of our list. And again, Chad, not much different than 25 years ago. Just we have an intense need to do this now more than ever.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Cy. First off, thanks for, your leadership and throughout Texas and especially for our agricultural community. And thanks again for joining us, here on this podcast. Appreciate it again.
Chad, thanks so much for your efforts and your enthusiasm for TALT. I know we can do great things together collectively, and I look forward to working with you.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks, Cy. And I look forward to working with you and Texas Farm Bureau and strengthening our partnership. And, most importantly, I have this passion for our fellow producers and our agricultural lands and what it means to all of us. And, I wake up each and every day trying to help producers, empower them to be better tomorrow than they are today. And I know we can do great things together, working together. So again, I hope everybody enjoyed the conversation with Cy. I know I always do enjoy Cy Cook's insight and appreciate him joining us again today. And I hope everybody can join us on our episode number 6, where we'll bring some producers in to kind of hear from their perspective again on agriculture and sustainability and easements and what it means to them. So again, appreciate everybody joining us and have a blessed one. Thank you.
Beyond the Fence Line, a podcast brought to you by the Texas Agricultural Land Trust. Created by landowners for landowners, we're proud to play a role in conserving the Texas legacy of wide open spaces.